evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. We've got lots of people from all over the world who have signed up for this webinar. Thanks for joining us. This webinar is proudly brought to you by hempdrying.com, who are one of our guests. We've got guests from all over the world today who are going to talk about hemp. We started this webinar series a few months ago just to try and increase the dialogue of conversation around hemp. Hemp is taking too long to come online, and there are reasons that we need to share information, share knowledge to build it, because it can change the direction of our planet in many ways and contribute towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This is also brought to you in partnership with Friends of Hemp South Africa, as well as Hemp magazine from Germany. So this is the second we've done so far. All of these go onto YouTube, so if you missed it or one of your colleagues has missed this, please feel free to join us. So today we're talking about hemp processing. When we get into the hemp space, we often look at the hemp industry as an agricultural industry. We think of the fields and the cultivation, the genetics, but what we are lacking across the planet is actually that part of the processing value chain that actually helps us take the customer or the product to the customer. So cultivation is starting. We've got to increase the demand, but processing is what sits essentially in the middle of that. And if we can't process what we cultivate, we can't create products. We need demand to increase so that we can create products. So we're literally building the supply chain up as we speak. There are some countries around the world that are quite developed. South Africa is still at early stages. I'm really hopeful that in October, which is our planting season, that we do get some sizable hectareage of plants in the ground, but we need to figure out what to do with those plants once we've harvested them. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guests. Linda, if you could please bring our guests in, and we'll find out where they're from and what they do, and then we'll crack on. Tom, how are you doing?
Very well.
Sunshine.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Horsey, good evening. Brittany, good evening. Good morning, I think it is for you in Canada.
Yeah,
thanks for joining us. Let's just do a quick round table and just get introductions. So Tom, if you'd like to just start by introducing yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Tom Pankras from hempdrying.com. As the name says, I'm specialized in the drying of industrial hemp. For every part of the hemp plant, we have a specialized solutions for drying the hemp seeds, for drying the hemp flowers, and for the controlled retting of the hemp stalks. We are developing a new installation which is able to ret the hemp stalk in a controlled manner. And we come from a background in agricultural drying, which we have done for 50 years with Agritechniek, and 7 years of medicinal recreational cannabis drying through cannabisdrying.com.
So you have a little bit of drying experience. Huh? Great. Good. Thanks for being here, Tom. Really appreciate it. Sunshine, over to you. Dr. Blouw.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sunshine Blouw. I have a 20 years experience involved in your bus fiber research, formerly employed by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, called CSIR in Gqeberha. Now I'm with the Eastern Cape Rural Development Agency, coordinating the cannabis and hemp industrialization program for the Eastern Cape province. Thank you.
Thanks, Sunshine. Horsey, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Boshoff Muller, and I head up a small startup called Afrimat Hemp. And as far as experience concerned around this table, I definitely can't compete on the experience front. So happy to learn from some of our esteemed panels tonight. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Boshoff. I know you're underplaying yourself, but you've done some great work in this space. So I look forward to unpacking that and all learning. There's no stupid questions. We're all here to learn. That's how you move things forward. Brittany, all the way from Canada. Thank you so much for joining us. Just a bit of background on who you are, please.
Yeah, perfect. I'm Brittany. I'm the general manager over at Hempalta. So Hempalta's mission is to be at the forefront of the next evolution of agriculture by harnessing the immense potential of industrial hemp. We aim to do this by innovating the global carbon credit industry, as well as utilizing advanced agricultural technology to process hemp at scale. We are creating and producing a diverse range of hemp-based commercial and consumer products for a healthier and more sustainable future.
Great, thanks, Brittany. I know you've been at this a long time, so thank you for being here. I really look forward to hearing some of your knowledge and wisdom. So the first thing I want to start, we've obviously got harvesting. The harvest happens, we cut the plants down, that we dealt with sort of last week. We have this thing called retting. okay, which, you know, I've learned, you know, in the last few months is such a vitally important part of the process. So let's start with that. I think, Tom, if we could just get some input from you and then Sunshine from you on what is retting and why is it so important?
Yeah, I'm here in the north of Holland, which is northern Europe. In our region, we have, of course, the process called dew retting. So the moisture from the airflow, it comes down by night, and it moisturizes the hemp stalks, and it enables the microbes on the hemp stalks to grow and to develop, and to eventually consume the pectin, which holds the woody core of the hemp stalk together with the outer part, which is the hemp fibers, and holds the individual hemp fibers together as well, which is a process which takes about 3 weeks. Once that is finished, it can go into can be rolled into bales, can be taken inside the storage facility, and can be decorticated.
And just explain to us the importance of the retting process in terms of timing, because if you leave it too long, it completely swings the pendulum the other way. Can you just unpack that for us?
Yeah, you have a small tipping point at which you, when you keep control over the retting process, then you can guide it to the right quality. But once you lose the control, it begins to actually rot. So when you get over the tipping point, the quality of the fibers and the stalk can deteriorate quite quickly. And of course, you don't have control of the weather circumstances. So it's really, for now, a point of having the good eye and the good judgment to choose when do I take my hemp inside, when it's ready for the next step in the process.
And I guess that obviously comes down to experience, but are there any tips you could give somebody to any identifying factors that they would let them know that it's ready to bring in?
Yeah, mostly what the people use to judge the degree of retting, it's the color of the stalk, so it should be light gray. Also, they do a retting test by means of the hand. So when you shake it together, the stalk like this, the woody core should break away freely from the hemp fibers. But to develop more standardized process, we are developing a controlled retting installation to make sure that you can control the variables which make up the retting process, so that you can in the end also have control over the output, and you don't have to worry about such matters anymore.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Tom. Sunshine, maybe just some input from you. I know that you've experienced with field retting and you kind of know all the ins and outs of that, especially for fiber. Just some insights from you in terms of how we ret. You know, I mean, you've got massive hectareages of fields growing. You know, you leave all your stuff. You know, how do you pick it up? Just a bit of insight from you and your experience.
Thanks, Trenton. I'll add to some of the issues that have been raised by Tom. He's quite correct. I normally say retting is both an art and a science. An art, it comes, on issues that you have raised in terms of your experience. In terms of the science, is where we get to the action of the microbes or microorganisms that you find on the soil, that then feeds on the gummy or gluey substance, which Tom calls pectin, so that you loosen the fibers that have been glued together, and it makes that straw being processable. And I need to add, it's not only you retting, it depends on the different type of your countries. In other countries where they don't have, environmental laws like we have in South Africa, there's also water retting. If you look at countries like your Egypt, they practice water retting on their flags, where they dip, the straw or on water bath, where the action of your microorganisms becomes quite faster, and as such it gives you a different quality of your fiber compared to your dew retting, And the third retting process is the one that is also expensive, that some other countries or research institute are trying, called enzymatic retting, where you actually use, enzymes, to break up this gummy substance. And for the participants or listeners in this webinar, the best way to understand it, I normally call it controlled rotting process. And as such, one needs to pay very particular attention to it. It's a make or break, because if you over-ret, it necessarily means those fibers coming from that straw would not be useful for your downstream processing for the other differentiated industrial value chains.
Great, thanks for that, Sunshine. Tom, just quickly, this is just some of the gear that you guys have on the market for hemp stalk. Can you just talk us through this quickly?
Yeah, we instead of leaving it on the field or putting it in a big water tank, we try to make a controlled retting installation, which is inside of a cell. We can introduce the precise temperature and the precise moisture content to the airflow, and in that way onset the retting process by circulating the air through the containers where the hemp stalks are held. In that way, you can control the input of the retting cell. Then let the microbes develop on the hemp stalks by creating the desired conditions for the retting process, and also stop the retting process at the desired state of decomposition. So you can actually tailor the whole process from the seed genetic to the growth stage to the harvesting, and then to the controlled retting right up until the decortication.
Okay, great, thanks. I think one of the things, I'm going to play a little video now, because we're obviously trying to figure out how to bring this industry online, how to industrialize. We're looking at big industrial units. They're expensive, and when the demand isn't there, it's very difficult to get investors to put money in, because there's an element of risk, or they don't necessarily understand the full value chain. But I just want to play this video because I found it quite interesting, the way this chap put it.
This is your clothing, textile industry, car industry. Thousands and thousands of industry is used from the fibre. One thing I notice is people always say, oh, you can build rope out of it. Oh, you can build cars with it. You can build this without it. You can do this with it. It's like, how? You've missed the most fundamental point. And it's a processing facility. Without somewhere to take it, don't even put it in the ground, because you're going to waste your money. If we haven't got a processing facility, we haven't got an industry. It is a heartbeat of an industry. Farmers bring it to the processing plant, then from the processing plant, we can distribute to builders. Without it, we have no industry. And that's something that I think really skips over people's head. We need a processing facility in every shire, in every region, because you do not want to be carting hemp, because it's a lightweight material and you're actually carting air, but it has to start somewhere.
So, I mean, these are the things we're talking about all the time, we talk about all of these applications that hemp is useful for, but if we don't process it properly, we're kind of dead in the water. Brittany, you've been at this a long time, obviously run a large-scale company. Processing is the heartbeat of what you do and understand. Tell us about, firstly, just give us a little bit of insight into the Canadian hemp industry, and maybe you can give us some insight into where you guys are at in terms of processing, and how you guys, got to the situation where you could process for industrial downstream purposes.
Yeah, so for the Canadian hemp industry, most of the hemp here is grown for grain, for food processors. So that's primarily where the market is in Canada, is for food. So for a long time, hemp's been legal in Canada since 1998. But no one really did anything with the fiber content, the stalks of it, until recently, like about 8 years ago, when hemp processors started to come online. So it kind of makes it a dual crop there, where farmers are growing it for the grain, which they would sell for food production, and then they would sell the straw to like either processors, so decortication companies, and those companies would turn it into a multitude of different products. So Hempalta, we are focused on obtaining high value markets, and our markets are more geared towards the consumer packaged goods aspect. So we focus on pet products, garden products. Anyone's available to go to our website, hempalta.com, gives the full detail of everything we do. Yeah, we focus on that. So with regards to hemp processing, the biggest piece of hemp processing and why there's not that many people online is that there's a lot of conventional processors out in the market that attract and focus on producing the low value products. So to successfully tap into larger markets and to avoid competition with low-end hemp products, it's essential to focus on producing high-value products. This requires state-of-the-art hemp processing equipment that can deliver the superior quality and efficiency for processing, so you're not paying an arm and a leg in overhead costs and not getting any sales from it. At the end of the day, processing on a conventional decortication system and a high-end decortication system is not an apples to apples comparison. They produce two very different types of products. So by utilizing advanced technology, you can ensure that the end products meet the highest standards, which will appeal to the discerning markets and justify a premium priced product. This strategy not only helps differentiate your offerings, but it also positions your brand as a leader in the industry, capable of producing specialized high-value hemp products that stand out in the competitive global market. So to the best of our knowledge, Hempalta is one of the only commercial scale hemp processors that do supply to the high value markets. So we do utilize a piece of equipment called the hemp train to reach our markets. And with the way we process our fiber, how our equipment runs, it processes it differently than conventional hammer mills or scutcher systems or rollers or any other type of hemp processor out there. So our system doesn't damage the fiber, which retains the tensile strength and length of the fiber. So that makes it ideal for reinforcement application. It also size specifies our herd streams, and it also creates a third stream called green microfiber, which is the concentrated leaf and flower material, which you can use if you're processing, say, CBD stalks. You can press that into the CBD oil, or if not, you can separate that for more of a food additive for animal feed. I'm going to play a quick video of the hemp train. Some people may have heard of it. It is quite a well-known piece of kit. It's expensive. You know, you're probably looking landed in South Africa, 75 million and transport on top of that. But I just want to play a little bit of it just to give you an understanding, the audience, of the level of industrialization that is needed to really, really facilitate those downstream opportunities. So I'm just going to play this for a second.
quite nicely, the complexities of processing, and I'm really interested to just unpack the different levels with you in a sec, Brittany. But Bossy, you're working in the construction space, so hempcrete, you need hemp hurd, you're trying to make hemp plaster, and I know that the supply chain has been a bit challenging. And I just want to show a few different layers. So obviously the hemp train is expensive, it costs a lot of money. If you want to industrialize and you want to really push product out, that's kind of where you're heading at some point. But I'd be interested to know the general opinion after Bossy spoken about kind of sort of lower tech. So Brittany mentioned a hammer mill. So this essentially is these are just different shapes and sizes of hammer mills, where you essentially put the stalk in and it breaks the stalk into small pieces, and then you can use the hurd for building. So that's kind of one sort of level, and they all come in different shapes and sizes. And then we've got decorticators, or these are sort of more manual decorticators. So I love this one on the right. It calls it a cannabis peeling machine. And then you've got others on the left, and then you've got the kind of hipster herdmaster on the right, which is portable. But those are obviously limiting in terms of the volume that they can do. So I guess that if we're taking items like that into the fields in our rural areas on a sort of entry level scale, there is the possibility to provide product for yourself, Bossy. But just tell us some of the challenges you have, because you're obviously further downstream in the processing, but I know you've also developed your own decorticator. What led you to that decision, and how did you get to that point?
Yeah, thanks, Trenton. So when we first started the business, we started with the hemp block development, and we've been involved with a big project in Cape Town that was kind of the catalyst for our business to start. At that stage, the hemp permit processing was still only rumors. If we fast forward 3 years later, luckily it's something that's been in the system for a while now. But at that stage we've imported hemp hurd for this specific project, which was a very costly exercise. And we then started sort of looking into the sort of near future in terms of supply for other projects after this Cape Town project. And that sort of led us down the path of looking at the permitting system at that stage. We've even dabbled with our own farming operation. That was a bit of a I'm not going to speak about that too much, but it was a bit of a fail. We realized that we're not farmers, so we burned our fingers a bit. We've actually sort of made the mistake of thinking that we can sell CBD flower and then use the waste product for blocks, which sort of present all sorts of challenges. And then we kind of looked into our own business, or our holding company, Afrimat, which is a mining company, and we looked at our core competencies in terms of processing bulk commodities. So if you look at the mining industry consists of obviously a mining, a drill and blast, and then there's primary and secondary processing that takes place. So this is basically copied and pasted throughout our whole business. If you look at our construction materials, our industrial minerals, iron ore, etc. And we then embarked on a strategy to kind of utilize the expertise in the group to look at crushing and screening, in inverted commas, of a hemp commodity. And that sort of led us on a path of embarking on some development work. I've deep prepared a few slides. I can show you a few photos if you want, but I think in a nutshell, we sort of had no idea in the beginning of actually what hemp decortication entails. So we started off with a very basic, cheap sort of Chinese decortication model, which we took apart and sort of customed and added a few bits. And from that, we started some local processing. That was about 3 years ago, 2021. We got some very valuable data out of that process, and realized that The issue with mentioned already, the issue with your smaller cultivation technologies or low-tech technologies is that it's good for boutique style hemp projects. In other words, if you want to grow hemp and build your own house, that would be ideal. But from an industrial scale point of view, these low-tech processing units are not sufficient to obviously produce the volume that's required when we talk industrial scale. So that kind of led us to a second sort of chapter in our development work, where we've taken the data from the first process and then started from scratch. We looked at obviously all the decortication and processing equipment available around the globe. So it's obviously the hemp train, the fiber track. I think it's the D6 in Australia. There's the guys Tatum in the UK, etc. And most of these plants are quite big factories, as you mentioned. The capital outlay required for these big factories is quite daunting and intimidating if you in a sector where market is infant, where supply is unsure, genetics is uncertainty about genetics, and that kind of led us on a path of developing something that's fairly mobile, but can pack a punch in terms of industrial volume, and that's easy scalable. So we are now we've developed a prototype, and we took that prototype and reverse engineered it into a fairly sizable plant. I think also part of this journey was that, yes, the decortication is the heart of the processing. We've chatted to a few entrepreneurs over the last few months who's kind of gone down the same path as us. We've been there, we've tried and put hemp material through a simple hammer mill, through a basic wood chipper machine, etc., to try and fast track or cut corners. But at the end of the day, the decortication part of the process, in our opinion, and again, we're fairly fresh in this, is that you can't separate, you can't utilize the fibers or the herds until you've actually decorticated sufficiently. And I think, again, what we've already seen in some of our trials, as Tom and Sunshine has mentioned, the retting process plays such a crucial part of that. And there's such a fine balance between under-retting and over-retting. And again, we've seen this from some of our trials as well. Over-retting, you can still utilize the herd, but fibers, unfortunately, just disintegrates and you can create a lot of dust. So, sorry, in a nutshell, I think we are quite close to starting up our plant. We are in commissioning phase. Unfortunately, commissioning, again, out of ignorance in the beginning, we thought commissioning will be 2 weeks and then we go. Our commissioning has been sort of happening for the past 3.5 months, so it's taking a bit longer. Once you start up sort of a train of equipment, there is certain gremlins that comes out, especially if you've designed it yourself and built it yourself. So we pretty much we kind of see ourselves a bit of an R&D company at this stage. But yeah, I guess that's the progress, and that's my 50 cents.
Thanks, Boshoff. Appreciate that. And just don't want to underplay the good work you've been doing, trying to make things happen. So thank you, Sunshine. We're obviously in a very different industry to developing economies. We have large amounts of kind of rural farmers who are looking to hemp as a potential revenue stream. But when you put something like the hemp train on the table, that kind of knocks out most of the conversation. Do you think that there is a middle ground? So Brittany talked about high-level products which need very sort of if you can call it fine decortication that really separates things into components that are, I guess, tidier, and for want of a better word, and cleaner. But do you think there is space for us to be doing a degree of sort of low-level decortication for for sort of more entry level or low tech, as we call it, hemp applications?
I think, yes, we can adopt, what I would normally call a hybrid approach as a country. And I think what we need also to emphasize on this webinar, Trenton, I hope that the panelists will agree, because this is a learning program for the people that are listening, is that we should not discount the importance of your genetic material, the selection of the right genetic material. Because today, if you select, a fiber-based type of a genetic material, then we know that particular genetic material end-use application will be more on your technical type of your textile or your apparel, and then we should be able to understand what then would be the technology of choice that will fit that industrial value chain. What I'm trying to, to bring it back at home, in our country to date, I think we have now about 2 vertically integrated, cotton spinning, industry. So it necessarily means if you look at your hemp, you look at what then becomes the mechanical modification process that will give you fibers of hemp that is cotton-like. So that we could be able to feed, that industrial value chain. So as we talk, we need to be clear to, to the participants that are here, that for the selection for a specific industrial end-use application, for cotton, developing of your blended yarns, we need to have your high-tech type of your technology choice. And that will also be equally true if we go to the other next layer of, industrial value chain called your technical textile, where we have your non-woven as a sector. And the reason why I am raising these sectors, Trenton, for, the audience out there, they should know that non-woven is one of the fastest growing technical textile or sector in the world because of the sheer use of non-woven. So whilst for your, the fiber for your apparel is a fine fiber, at least for a non-woven, you don't need, such a high type of your quality fiber, but you still need a quality fiber. But if you look for your low-end application, like Bossy has stated, in your building, where I normally call it is your high volume, low value type of a sector, this is where the low-tech can actually come in, in terms of a choice of a processing technology. So I wanted to make this, conversation to be more applicable when we look at from the South African perspective. So in a nutshell, yes, a hybrid approach, in my view, would be a good approach if we want to play it your high level type of your apparel. Technology selection becomes very, very important. As well as in your low tech, when you look at your building and your construction, this is where we can look at your low tech, type of an application for our rural setup. That would be my contribution, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sunshine. It's just important that we know that, because we don't have $75, $80 million, that we can still play some kind of role as we try to get this online. Brittany, I want to talk about the sort of structure you have. We heard in the video earlier, and we're very aware that transporting, hemp in its raw format is just not financially viable distances. We had a farm from France recently at our campus with the Cabasa brought out called Le Chanvre, and they were a big, massive industrial co-op processing facility that was actually owned by the farmers in the area. How do you deal with farmers in terms of distance, in terms of acquisition of the actual raw materials? What is that relationship, and how did you build that?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate for where we're positioned. So we're in one of the major cities in Alberta in Canada, and that is in southern Alberta, where there's a lot of hemp grown in surrounding farming communities. So all the hemp we source is in about a 3-hour logistics transport radius. So that's how we're able to control our costs, having pretty much hemp grown in our backyard. So in terms of our relationship with the farmer, our farmers have relationships with their food processors who they would first contract out the seeds to, and then they contract us out to the straw.
So the farmer does the deal with the offtake, if you like, and then you're kind of in between. And so in terms of genetics, do they decide on that based on their client need?
Yeah, so for genetics, the farmer will typically first and foremost make a primary for whatever the food processor is recommending, just based on what they need for the seed yields. But that doesn't say that Hempalta we're not more selective with the varieties that we bring in. In our experience with processing, there's better, depending on the yields and the throughputs that we're looking for processing straw. Some genetics process better than others in terms of what your throughput wants to be. If you're more focused on like getting more fiber yields, you may focus on a certain type of strain, versus if you're looking for more herd yields, you may be looking at a different type of strain. Irrigation, soil, temperature, location, all of that definitely affects how the crop is also processed.
Great, thanks, Brittany. So as we always do on these webinars, we always give away a course. We have an online hemp cultivation course that is coming up in a few months. And we do have a winner for this course. It is online, so you can do it from anywhere in the world. And the winner of this course is Thomas Liba, all the way from Argentina. So thank you for joining us from Argentina. We really appreciate it. And we'll be in touch. Give you the details. Great. So let's get back into it. Tom, you've been at the coalface of sort of drying and obviously seeing this hemp industry grow. What from your perspective in kind of the European territories that I'm sure you've interacted with, do you see as barriers to entry and steps to move processing forward? You guys are completely part of the processing chain. What do you think are some of the key challenges to moving it forward?
I think in general, creating localized value chains. We have in Holland, of course, great examples with Hemp Flux and Dun Agro, who are already at the forefront of the hemp industry, providing isolation materials and building materials, car panels, everything you need. But I think for it to spread across Europe, or the same example for Africa, you need to have the local processing hubs, which every step is like fitted with the next step in the processing line. So the genetic choice, like Sunshine brought up, with the decortication line and the exact end use you want to use, and of course the drying step in between that, or the retting step in case of the hemp stalks, to make sure that every step is tailored towards the end product and the end market. So that is my key insight, and also making use of the knowledge that has already been gathered by traditional industries. For example, I'm working a lot with the Belgian flax industry, who have already a lot of knowledge in processing natural fibers, in retting stalks, and they are very keen to develop new retting techniques, like we are developing with the controlled retting method, and also developing the hemp market to make sure that they have additional feedstock to also grow the natural fiber market.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very interesting point, to take parallel industries and learn from those, because they've been going for a long time, I mean, essentially, to some degree, some of these processing pathways are not completely unique or new, I wanted to just ask just to put the question out there to whoever would like to answer, how do we build the value chain? We're an education company and a consultancy. So we're continually moving between every part of the value chain, because ultimately, if this industry doesn't come online, we're not teaching anybody for an industry that's worth going into. How do we bring the different elements together? So, we've got cultivation, we've talked about genetics, we've got processing, we've got end consumer. Does anyone have any experience with building that supply chain and bringing those different stakeholders together? Anybody got any thoughts on that? Bossy, I think that's something maybe you could talk on. I know that you've really worked hard to build a supply chain, and now obviously creating your own sort of processing. But yeah, please.
Yeah, look, I unfortunately don't have all the answers. I wish I did, but we've made a ton of mistakes. So I think for me, the thing that stands out in terms of building a supply chain, I want to make 2 or 3 comments. Firstly, we've sort of been through a few emotional roller coasters in terms of excitement when we started looking at this. And I can see some of the aspiring entrepreneurs, aspiring startups going through a similar process that we've done. And I want to kind of share some of the mistakes we've made and kind of give a heads up to the public or to sort of aspiring entrepreneurs. Find what your core competencies are and focus on that. Don't try and do everything. I think, unfortunately, the pro and the con of hemp is the fact that hemp is such a versatile feedstock. It gives it, it creates a lot of excitement. Hemp can be used in a lot of things, but that's also the blind spot of hemp, is that it does seem like we get phone calls on a regular basis of people with a lot of ideas and stuff. But often we see aspiring entrepreneurs trying to do too much, and then nothing happens. And I think one of the reasons why this is we're trying to kickstart the sector. So there is a lot of frustration. As you mentioned before, Trenton, things are moving too slow. I think sometimes we also sit here and we feel like things are moving too slow, and we just, we're building a business, but kind of in the sector as well. I think for me, it is focus on, if you're a farmer, focus on farming. If you're an engineer, focus on engineering, processing. If you in the commercial retail space, focus on the marketing. So I think once we sort of find our niche and find our core competencies, or know our core competencies, and focus on that and start cooperating, I think then we'll get traction quicker than trying to do too many things all at the same time. I think in terms of hemp, there's a lot of overhype on hemp. There's a lot of things, if you Google hemp, that hemp can do that's just so amazing. But at the end of the day, one must sort of keep a realistic mindset when you deal with hemp. Normal business basics apply when you kind of into this, any business, but specifically the hemp sector as well. So I guess that's my 50 cents on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's not untypical of any sunrise industry when it first starts. No one really knows where they want to position themselves, so everyone tries to do everything. And I think as things progress, people will find their lanes. But you're right, we all need to be experts at certain areas and then build the supply chain through that. We've talked about kind of, I guess low and mid tech processing, where we're separating the different parts of the plant. Does anybody have an experience? Maybe Brittany, you do. That there's obviously high tech processing. So once you've pulled the plant apart, when you go into sort of processing for plastics or for biofuels, or that's a whole nother side of processing. I don't want to go into too much detail because it's very scientific and technical. But could you maybe share, or so one of the other people on the panel just share some sort of high tech processing that happens?
Yeah, so depending on your application, you may be required to have extra value add processing. So it's just dependent on your business model and what type of products you want to get out there. But the initial step would be decortication, and then there can be value add processing on top of that, which is a whole different line of equipment that you would need to have.
And what are some of those things? I mean, I mentioned sort of biofuel, but are there plastics? Are there
Yeah, so any application where hemp is getting turned into something else, so your biofuels, your textiles, your plastics, any of those engineered applications would require additional processing and research on top of that to be put into the application.
Yeah, I think that what people need to understand is that hemp is the raw product, and it goes through different phases and different stages of processing in itself. And then it needs to go into, other downstream opportunities, whether it's, panels for a car, and then you need the machinery for that. So it's complex, and I often say that to people, is the hemp industry an agricultural industry? If you look at the amount of downstream spaces and places that it actually goes into, I think to consider hemp an agricultural industry would be naive, because it has to move into so many different areas. We've only got 10 minutes left, so I just wanted to unpack from maybe Tom and Brittany key learnings in what you've seen happen in your territories, and then I'd like Sunshine and Boshoff just to give us their input on next steps and what we need to do as a South African economy to drive this forward. So if I could just start off with maybe with Tom. Some of the key learnings that you see happening, some of the mistakes you might see happening, some of the challenges you might see happening for this market to come online would be really useful.
Yeah, for my part of the hemp industry, it is key to, when you put a lot of energy and focus on growing the hemp crop, and you have a wonderful crop, be it for the flowers or for the hemp seeds or for the hemp stalk, to make sure that when the product gets harvested, that it gets as well prepared for the next process in the value chain as possible. So that is actually the key goal of hemp drying, to make sure that the freshly harvested product gets converted to a stable source material, which can be transformed to very sustainable and very practical end product for the end user. And in general, we do that by clearly focusing on the goals of the client, which uses our installations, by looking at the climate, at the harvesting schedule, and to make sure that the process of drying or the process of controlled retting is exactly tailored to the needs of the client.
So it's a process, yeah.
Perfect.
Great. Brittany, some of the key learnings you've had to bring the industry online that side?
Just, I guess, key pieces to keep in mind is when you're coming online as a commercial scale processor, is to have your product streams all figured out with your offtakes. If when you're processing, you're going to make bass fiber, but you're also going to make hurd, and to have both of those products kind of know where you're putting in the market and how you're going to position it. Never underestimate a good marketing plan as well. It's really going to do wonders for your business. And then a big piece of the component that can really help scale your business quite quickly is going after the carbon sequestration credits for hemp as well. So one of our subsidiaries, the Hemp Carbon Standard, is one of the only financial incentive programs in the world which reward industrial hemp farmers on their sustainable carbon farming journey. So the program is a technology-driven approach, and it's a established scientific methodology for carbon sequestration to generate additional revenue streams to help the farmers. It also improves sustainability credentials for businesses, promotes sustainable hemp cultivation, and it promotes global reduction efforts for carbon. So this piece of the puzzle, you're not doing any extra work if you're already growing the hemp and using it in other applications. It's providing you that additional revenue stream to continue to help your business scale.
Yeah, I think that's such an important factor, is that this is a multi-use crop, and all parts of the plant can be used. I mean, if you look at the medical cannabis industry, the stalks and the leaves, etc., have to be incinerated as part of the rules, which is completely ridiculous. But we need a whole plant approach, and I think understanding the different aspects of that and where you can monetize is really important. Sunshine, Boshoff, next steps for South Africa. How do we do this? How do we get this processing thing happening properly?
I think the next step for us, and the people that are part of this webinar, we need to study, the country's comparative report of the DTIC, where they identified, what I would call your low-hanging fruit commercial opportunities that we have as a country. If you look at your animal feed, is a big sector in South Africa. Your human consumption is a big sector, and our responsibility, as people that are involved in hemp industrialization program, we should be able to identify those industrial pockets of excellence that currently exist, because there is a local offtake market, as Brittany has correctly pointed out. If you don't have the market demand pathway, we are stuck. So already there is that market, and then we need to figure it out, which is then the good genetic material in a form of your dual crop that we can use to feed that market. And from there, we have the low-tech technologies that are already in place to say, what do we do with the hemp straw? Put it through, the technology that Afrimat has developed to feed in your construction sector, aligned to our green construction, standards that we adopted as a country. So that's how we start to build a sector, and we have a well-established cosmetic sector as a country. So we should not be all over the show. We should be precise in our strategy, feed in on already existing markets, and we do the reverse engineering to look at where then are the gaps. And we know that one critical gap is around the processing technology. Where can we best find an appropriate technology fitting our strategy as a country? So this is what I would imagine we should be doing as a country when we start the industrialization. As we matured, then we can go to your high-end, complex, application. That would be the best way to start, hemp industrialization in South Africa.
Just lastly, what would you say to investors that are currently sniffing around this space in terms of encouraging them to get involved? What would you say to them?
To the investors that are part of this webinar, what they need to realize in terms of our agriclimatic conditions, we have a good agriclimatic conditions for the growing of hemp. In South Africa, we have got good arable land, and we have got good both, commercial and subsistence, small-scale holder sector coexisting in the country. That's a matured, industry. We are not starting from a practical zero base. And for those that would want to set up both the processing and the manufacturing operation as a country, we have also a good economic infrastructure in terms of your special economic zone that give preferential, incentive, to investors that would want to invest, in the country. We have got a well-matured, automotive sector, that is supported by government, as well as your textile and technical textile sector present, and a vibrant construction industry. So for any investor that would want to come into South Africa, we do have these pockets of your industrial excellence. We are not starting from a zero base as a country.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Sunshine. Appreciate it. Boshoff, just final words from you on, firstly, let's just quickly unpack the opportunity for low-cost housing with hemp and your opinion on that, and then just other things that we need to do as a country to kind of move the dial forward.
Thanks, Trenton. Just can I ask a quick question before I dive into those 2 points?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got a question for Brittany. Brittany, I'm not sure if you can disclose this. So if you can't, then that's also fine. But I'm going to ask the question anyway. What type of monetized value does one typically look at when you talk about carbon? Are we talking $2, $50, $150? I mean, where is that sort of pitched at the moment? Can you disclose that?
Yeah, so the value that you would get ultimately dictates your farming practices for what your fields are. So your best bet to get a more of an accurate estimate here is to contact us and contact our credit or like our carbon credit department. You can contact us at carbon-credits@hempalta.com. But I can say from the fields that we like our 2023 credits have been selling, and we are safe to say that we are the first of its kind to sell. A lot of the credits were sold at about $35 a ton last year, and we're anticipating more upwards to $75 to $100 a ton.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Brittany.
It's good to hear that that's actually materializing.
Yeah.
Yeah, then just on just quickly, I know we're running short of time, so just on the low cost housing, Trenton. I think for us to move forward, and I guess it's sort of the answer covers a few things. I think we need to focus on the basics. So firstly, we need to get seed in the ground. Planting season is around the corner. Last year, we kind of sit in a similar position where everybody thought there's going to be seed in the ground, and then no seed went into the ground. So I think to get the industry started, again, I think as Sunshine mentioned, genetics is super important. You need to know what your purpose are, what you're planting for, what you're processing for, what you're targeting, what your strategy is. So we need to get seed in the ground. I think without seed in the ground, we can have the fanciest Canadian trains, but if there's no seed in the ground, we can't get going. That's the first comment. I think on the housing, look, we've done some prototypes outside of South Africa, which is quite ironic. So the first low-cost housing project that we've done was actually in Mozambique, funded by the Dutch government. So in terms of low-cost housing, we need the government to kind of push the incentives and assist with the demand to create demand, which will filter through the value and supply chains. I think for us as a small startup to create demand and to educate the market on an ingredient in South Africa it's been a mammoth task, and we are not by ourselves creating enough market to actually kickstart or to make a viable business out of the increase for us as a business, never mind the industry. So we need other factors, other government interventions, especially if we talk about low-cost housing, to come online to assist with demand. So again, for us to move forward, I think we need to focus on the basics and focus on our core competencies, as I said previously.
Great, thanks for that, Bossy. I think it's a great way to end. We are super committed to trying to bring this industry online, so we really appreciate everyone's time. This session has been brought to you by hempdrying.com, as well as Hemp Magazine and Friends of Hemp. We are Cheeba Cannabis Academy and Cheeba Cannabis Consulting, so we offer services across the hemp and cannabis supply chain. If you'd like to get in touch, cheeba.africa.com is our URL. So yeah, guys, thank you so much. There's work to be done to bring this industry online, but I think collectively and by sharing knowledge like this, we can do that. Just a reminder that this is now live on our YouTube channel. If you want to watch a rerun and check any particular section out, you're welcome to do that. And please let people know who didn't manage to make it. But thank you so much, everybody, for your time. Let's bring this hemp industry forward. Let's make it happen. And let's make the world a better place. Have a great day.